Welcome back. Well, the Fiscal Cliff deal wasn't the only news coming out of Capitol Hill last night. More than 2 months after one of the most destructive storms to ever hit the U.S. made landfall, the House of Representatives has yet to pass a $60.4 billion Hurricane Sandy relief bill that the Senate approved last week. The House chose not to vote on the bill last night yet again. This afternoon, a fiery New Jersey Governor Chris Christie took one shot after another at House Speaker John Boehner and the House Republicans for their, quote, toxic internal politics.
For the victims of Sandy in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, it's been 66 days, and the wait continues. There's only one group to blame for the continued suffering of these innocent victims: the House majority and their Speaker, John Boehner.
And you know what? He's right. Even though history has panned the federal government's reaction to the deadly Hurricane Katrina of 2005, then President George W. Bush signed the first relief bill a mere 4 days after the storm made landfall. Compare that with the 66 days since Hurricane Sandy hit the eastern seaboard. Initial estimates of Hurricane Sandy say that at least $50 to $60 billion of damage was inflicted across the Northeast and the tri-state area. After a meeting between the tri-state area Congress members and the House leadership, members said that the House will vote on a $9 billion flood insurance on Friday and the whole bill on January 15th. But still, it's taking so long to get this passed. So why is that? For some answers, Michael Brooks, producer of the Majority Report, joins me from New York. He's at the center of the storm. Hey there, Michael. So I have to ask, what's the holdup here?
Well, first of all, great to be with you and Happy New Year. The holdup is really hard to explain. I mean, maybe Republicans just hate New York and New Jersey and the tri-state area. But, you know, a little bit less flippantly, I think that one thing that happens is a lot of times we accuse Republicans of, being hypocrites on fiscal policy, which they often are. So they'll complain about out-of-control deficits and all the rest, and then they go and they splurge on tax cuts and corporate welfare and all the other sort of things they want to throw money at. And then, I think what we're seeing here is another strain of republicanism, which is sort of putting, or not putting its money where its mouth is, which is there is a strain in the Tea Party and people like that who simply don't believe in federal relief, no matter how serious the disaster. And we're actually seeing this put into play. It's a really extreme idea. It's a really extreme policy. And I think Boehner is probably backing off because the fiscal deal has just gone through and his caucus is very upset and they don't want to spend any more money, and particularly if it involves spending money on New Yorkers.
And Michael, that's actually a really interesting point that you made. Obviously, Governor Chris Christie was very upset, but he wasn't the only Republican who was so fired up about the House of Representatives' decision not to vote on the bill last night. Peter King, he's notoriously Republican, also notoriously outspoken, was actually very vocal about this issue as well. And I want to play for you part of what he said about the matter.
The Republican speaker walked off the floor without allowing a vote. And I'm just saying, these people have no problem finding New York. These Republicans, when they're trying to raise money, they raise millions of dollars in New York City and New Jersey. They send Governor Christie around the country, raising millions of dollars for them. I'm saying anyone from New York and New Jersey who contributes 1 penny to the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee should have their head examined. I would not give 1 penny to these people based on what they did to us last night.
Now, Michael, Representative King went as far as to insinuate that he will begin voting independently if a solution is not reached, and soon. So now we have these Republicans that are attacking their own party. I mean, do you think that, as you were kind of just mentioning, the Republican Party is experiencing a fundamental shift?
Well, that was some good Long Island talk from Peter King. I don't know if it's a fundamental shift. I think in Peter King's case, he's a savvy guy. He knows his constituents, and he knows who he's speaking to, even when he's doing some really ugly things like his Muslim American baiting, which has really been the main focus of his recent congressional career. But he's got to be looking over his shoulder and saying, look, if my entire national party will do nothing, they won't lift a finger to help my constituents who are in the middle of a slow motion, at this point, catastrophe, how can I think he cares, both ethically, but also as a question of political survival, make excuses for that. He can't.
So, Michael, let me ask you this. Do you think that this is a matter of people, senators, governors, mayors in the tri-state area versus the rest of the Republican Party? Or do you think that this is a line being drawn between traditional Republicans and Tea Party members?
Well, I think at this point it might even be a line between pretty conservative right-wing Republicans and Tea Partiers. I mean, because, there's a kind of other line of real moderate Republicanism, which is pretty much non-existent now. But there's also people who I think a lot of the kind of tri-state delegation would represent who are really still very conservative, very right-wing. But they have they have a certain rationality in their view of government, and they know that a bill like this has never been held up before. It's pretty extraordinary, and obviously they also have to look out for their constituents too. So I think it might be a dividing line between what's left of a more kind of rational Republicanism and a really extreme Tea Partyism.
And Michael, an interesting point to make is that Governor Chris Christie, he made his speech that disaster relief wasn't a political issue before, but it clearly is now. Is this what the U.S. is coming to? Everything, big and little, is divided down party lines, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. There has never been a holdup on a disaster bill like this before. I think that they're going to have to make some moves to kind of ameliorate this. I mean, the scale is smaller, but a couple of years ago, Republicans held up a bill that would have provided funding for first responders. I think it was specifically firefighters around September 11th. That got held up until people like Jon Stewart and other people kind of made a big deal of it. So I think it's symptomatic of a lot of other things, and it's disturbing and disappointing. I don't know how shocking it is, to be honest.
Well, what we do know is that it has been, in fact, 66 days since Hurricane Sandy hit, and yet these people are still waiting. Governor Christie went on to call them being treated like second-class citizens. So we'll just have to wait and see if something actually does come out Friday and subsequently January 15th. Michael Brooks, producer of The Majority Report, thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, thank you so much.